What's up, shred sexies? Death to the fingers. We're going to be getting into this pentatonic super workout. So lots of good stuff going on here with patterns and sequences and groupings and all that good stuff. We're doing 3-in-1. We've got a little arpeggio sequence using the minor 7, which synergizes nicely with the minor pentatonic scale. So we're going to go through all the mindset stuff, the mechanics, and the basic tools and positions and whatnot. And a good time will be had by all. At least that's what I'm thinking right now as I'm making this video. Let's get into it. All right, section 1 here, we're starting off in the Ionian position, G major, obviously 3rd fret. We're going to ascend using a pattern, using the minor pentatonic, in this case the major pentatonic. Obviously, if it's built off the 1st degree, we just call it the Ionian pentatonic. That's how I like to see it. Why make it complicated? Yeah, it has 16 names, but that's the one I like to use because it's built off the 1st degree of the scale, right? It's the major pentatonic or the Ionian pentatonic. Pick your poison. I'm going to do this pattern, of course, then jump into a grouping of 6, then the pattern again, and then another grouping of 6. But then I keep the pattern of grouping of 6 going because I want some unpredictability in the solo. And you never want it to sound too much of the same by just flip-flopping in the same increments all the time. That gives me the forward momentum to jump up to the Dorian position and just come down in groups of 4. And I don't want to overcomplicate things. I just want to be able to come up with a pretty cool idea in the moment and just lay it down. And that right there is something that is severely overlooked. People will sit there for hours and hours and hours working meticulously on coming up with a shred lick or whatever it is, and that's great. Sometimes you have to do that. But other times you just have to practice like this by taking some pretty simple ideas and putting them together and just getting good at doing it in the moment. That's a whole nother skill. So let's check out the slow version, and then we'll move on to section 2. All right, with section 2 here, essentially what we have is moving to the Phrygian position of G major. That's the note B, 7th fret. We're going to combine the Phrygian position pentatonic with the Mixolydian position pentatonic, and we're going to do 3-in-1. So you're basically playing Phrygian pentatonic, but now you can play it much faster. But the more important thing is when you do it like this, it kind of comes out sounding slightly different. Don't ask me why or how. It just does, to me personally. Maybe I'm just seeing ghosts or whatever, but it just sounds different. And you think about it differently too. It's a way of playing this scale that is completely contrary to what you were doing before. And that's actually an important thing to embrace. Doing something too much in one way, you actually get the law of diminishing returns. So you can always flip over and do 3-in-1, get the same kind of principle, but now be able to play them at ultra speed like Frank does. So it's up to you. But the 3-in-1 there essentially, once I get to the B and the high E string, it starts to break down fingering wise. So I was like, might as well switch over to the Phrygian 3 notes per string system, and I can just do these 2 whole steps stacked on top of each other on the B and the high E string. Problem solved. Plus I break it up again, right? Go from 3-in-1 to 3 notes per string at the very, very end. It's just enough to be like, okay, yeah, that actually works, instead of just doing the predictable stuff. It adds this extra little element by 1 note, some cases, sometimes 2. But there it is. That also allows me to jump up with confidence into the Aeolian position now and do the sequence of 5. Which, of course, if I kept on with the 3-in-1, that might get a little tricky, even on my best day. So, again, sometimes the path of least resistance is worth taking. Go for like a for sure accurate win and connect those two ideas rather than get stubborn and be like, oh, do that in your practice session and be like, man, is it really worth sort of going through the hell necessary to get that perfect? It's up to you though. But that's the second half. So let's listen to the slow part and then we'll move on to section 3. All right, in section 3 here, we're jumping up to Mixolydian again. We're going to hybridize this Mixolydian pentatonic by adding in some chromaticism on the low E string, and then, of course, the flattened third on the A string, and then jump up to either you could see it as the G major scale as the classical method from the A string, or C Lydian from 3 notes per string, also from G major, but that's the 6-note system, or the 6-string system. 6-note system. Oh, woo! Swing and a miss. All right, so the 6-string system, right? So the 3 notes per string stuff. But once you kind of get to the top 2 strings again, you can just flip back over to the chromaticism from the minor pentatonic. Why make your life challenging? And this allows, of course, this leaping off area for you to go down to the Phrygian position and now use minor 7 as the vehicle to sort of end the idea, because you can do a sequence of arpeggios from more tension in the Phrygian position, bouncing down to the Ionian position where you take some of that tension off from the minor 7. Right? You're going from the second inversion down to the first inversion. The first inversion moving down to the root inversion, that's going to be like the least amount of tension, right? That's basically the chord at rest. But as soon as you go to the first inversion, it adds more tension into it. The second inversion, more tension still. Third inversion, yikes, watch out, right? So that's an important concept to understand, because you can use that now to your advantage, because I moved from the second inversion in Phrygian down to the first inversion in Ionian, which sets me up perfectly to deke down just a half step into the Locrian position using major 7, descend in the third inversion there before ending with that nice little resolution from 7 to 1, ending the idea. Job's done, right? So it's the synergy of the scales and the arpeggios. It's the creativeness of combining the sequences, whether it's 3 and 1 into a sequence, or whether it's like a pattern and a grouping, if you will, into a sequence of 4 or 3 or whatever it's going to be, right? So it's limited to your imagination, of course, one more time. And that's what you're really trying to exercise, is this ability to come up with new ways, new patterns, new sort of interpretations of the same old, right? So that you can get more, squeeze that much more practice value out of it. So that basically covers it. They'll do the slow section, of course. At the very, very end, you'll see me do a free play version of this. You'll probably want to check that one out. Start organizing your practice sessions if you can't play them to backing tracks like this with respect to this kind of an idea, where you're going to combine a whole bunch of pentatonic ideas together back to back to back to create like a super lick like this, and then just have something like that to practice over and over and over again until you get it. And then, of course, at the same time, you should have been developing your mind to be like, look, I can immediately adapt this over to doing this. And now Bob's your uncle. Thanks so much for joining me. I appreciate every single one of you. I hope you have an amazing Tuesday, and I will see you in the next one.